This could help millions of Americans. A growing number of Democratic lawmakers are pushing for the expansion of new tax credits. Checks worth thousands of dollars will be provided to the low income. The American Rescue Plan did temporarily increase the child tax credit for the year, and the maximum credit was raised to $3,000. The previous represented a significant amount from the previous amounts too. And now this is a tax credit, it's totally refundable. Furthermore, the bill introduced the concept of advance payments of the child tax credit, instead of waiting until the tax filing season to receive the credit. Eligible families could receive a portion of their credit in advance through periodic payments. And Massachusetts has some of the highest child care costs in the nation, but it could become more affordable for some under a new tax relief law. A key feature of the $1 billion tax relief bill is actually increasing state tax credits for a dependent child, disabled adult, and a senior. Now, the tax credits would be the most generous child tax credits in the nation and benefit more than 5,600 families. The new law actually eliminates the current limit of 2 qualifying dependents, meaning potentially even more savings for those with 3 more children. A qualifying couple with 4 children could receive an additional $1,200 a year starting next year as well. While many of the provisions of the tax relief bill were originally proposed last year, now the child care tax credit is a key plank of her campaign promise for the governor. Overall, the lack of child care options in the state is costing working families, some of whom are spending 20 to 40% of their annual income on the program. The average cost of a child is actually more than $20,000 a year. The most expensive state in the nation, only behind that, is Washington, D.C. Working families as a whole are losing an estimated $2 million a year in wages from not being able to show up to work because of their child care services. And according to tax and energy experts, a new proposal from the U.S. Department of Treasury will make it easier for consumers to get a tax credit when buying a new vehicle. Its proposed rules will let the car dealers offer the electric vehicle tax break to consumers at the point of sale. All eligible vehicle buyers, or not just a subset of eligibility, typically wealthier consumers will get the upfront discount, and dealers were always supposed to offer point-off sale discounts in 2024 as per the Texas Inflation Reduction Act.
This is unconscionable, and I've asked members of my team, including Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas and Attorney General Garland, to work intensively with our Jewish community partners so many of you here to set up security around Jewish life in America, identify, prevent, and disrupt emerging threats that occur. We're also going to continue to condemn and combat anti-Semitism at every single turn, at every turn.
California Governor Gavin Newsom has confirmed that the state is actually going to be sending out $9.5 billion to tax refunds to Californians all across the state. These checks are called the middle class tax refund checks. So if you're in the middle class or even the lower middle class, you'll be getting stimulus payments in the state. The release of the programs to get the money back into the people. It's an extension of the Golden State stimulus, which distributed $9 billion to families, in fact, and the billions of dollars more in crisis relief funds that were sent to residents to help pay for rent, cover overdue utility bills, in addition to supporting small businesses. The governor said, "We know it's expensive right now, and California is putting money back into your pockets to help out. We're sending out refunds worth over $1,000 to help families pay for everything from gas to groceries." The governor's office has said that payments range from $400 to $10,000, $1,000 for people without taxes, and $200 to $700 for individuals, depending on their income and whether they claim dependent. A total of 18 million payments will be distributed all in all, with an estimated 8 million direct deposits set to start arriving in bank accounts between the end of this month and the middle of next month. The state controller said the inflated costs for everyday necessities have forced many to cut corners or make impossible choices, so people can be getting stimulus checks and should expect to receive it. And not only that, but in Maine, you have until the end of the month to claim a $850 stimulus check thanks to the state budget surplus.
Community partnerships, donations, and gifts, and education projects. The Fish and Wildlife Services currently utilize volunteers for tours, restoring the habitat, plant and animal survival, staffing refuge stores and visitor centers, and all other activities. Well, I believe more work needs to be done to improve our overall management of our national wildlife refuges. The volunteer activity that this bill will reauthorize are an effective tool in performing needed work without increasing costs to taxpayers. Solutions such as this legislation are especially welcome during the times like these when our national debt continues to balloon and inflation comes to soaring because of reckless spending pushed forwards by the majority.
President Biden has made a very big announcement on his Build Back Better Act. Lawmakers are pushing for a new deadline to approve the massive spending bill. A fourth round of stimulus checks may begin being sent out this month, everybody, so stay tuned. According to Business Insider, Joe Biden reportedly told Democratic donors at 2 California fundraisers that he needed some legislative firepower to help him get his priorities passed on Capitol Hill. This is a nod to the thin margins Democrats hold in Congress. At the second fundraiser in Los Angeles, Biden remarked on the evenly divided Senate, where he has to rely on Kamala Harris in her tie-breaking vote and the unanimous Democratic unity to get his biggest priorities over the finish line. According to sources familiar with the matter, Biden said, "We need 2 more senators," in referencing Democrats Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona and Manchin of West Virginia. They are the 2 moderate lawmakers who have upended some of his biggest domestic policy items since the beginning of his term. And while Biden has been able to rely on Sinema and Manchin in their overwhelming support for his judicial nominees, he stumbled with them on negotiations regarding the Build Back Better Act, the multi-trillion-dollar spending package that is still being negotiated on. The president did not call out the lawmakers by name, but they said they're slowing up what we're able to do. Democrats are facing a difficult electoral roadmap this year, as they are defending narrow majorities in both houses of Congress, while also contending with Biden's middling approval ratings. But the president, everybody, said he was hopeful that the party could perform well and ask donors to help him achieve his legislative goals. If Democrats could pick up 2 seats in the Senate without losing any of their current members, they would have a 52 Senate majority. That's enough to potentially weaken the filibuster and pass bills without requiring support from either Manchin or Sinema. Manchin said at a World Economic Forum panel that he believes lawmakers will be able to get something done. He has said that the new package should fight inflation, reduce deficit, and address climate change. He also told reporters last week that all 50 Senate Democrats should be able to support a bill that cuts prescription costs. The Federal Reserve will also dominate the conversation for investors this week. The central bank's latest policy meeting will be held this week, with the Fed expected to announce at least another 0.5% increase in its benchmark interest rate. The Fed will release its latest summary of economic projections on Wednesday, offering officials some forecasts for GDP growth, inflation, and future rate hikes. Following late Friday's data on inflation, investors are now bracing for the potential of more aggressive interest rate increases from the Fed, perhaps as soon as this week. The Bureau of Labor Statistics' May Consumer Price Index report unexpectedly rose 8.6%. That causes some worries on Wall Street that inflation has become more entrenched in the U.S. economy, potentially pushing Fed officials to take more heavily handed action in efforts to slow surging costs. This relentlessly aggressive stance could include raising interest rates by 0.75%. The crisis has led to a new era of inflation inequality. Economists warn in which poor households bear the brunt of rising prices. A recent analysis found that low and middle-income households spend about 7% more in 2021 for the same products they bought in 2020 or 2019. That translates into about $3,500 for the average household.
And the profits of these corporations going up massively, even as working people across this country cannot afford their gas at the pump. This is profiteering, and it's not just by those oil companies. Look at the food companies.